If you and your best friends were trapped in a game of truth or dare turned deadly, what would you do? These college kids wanted one last week of fun before graduation, but instead of a dream trip to Mexico, they ended up in a never-ending nightmare. I'm gonna break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the truth or dare death game in Truth or Dare. These unsuspecting spring breakers are about to have their relationships put to the ultimate test. Speeding down the highway near the Mexico-US border, this girl pulls into a small gas station and walks inside looking nervous. She tries to buy some candy and a pack of cigarettes, but before she can pay, the cashier suddenly starts speaking in a demonic voice, asking her to play a game of truth or dare. The man forces her to choose, and that's when the girl walks down the aisle, grabbing a can of lighter fluid and spraying it on this innocent woman. This lady screams out terrified, while the girl lights a book of matches, saying that she's sorry but she doesn't have a choice, and throwing them at the woman's feet, causing her to go up in flames. Back in the US, this girl Olivia plans to spend her spring break doing volunteer work, but finds out that her best friend Marky unsigned her up, so that she'll have to go on a trip with their friends instead. Olivia here is furious, but her friends Penelope and Tyson promise that if she comes along, then they'll all spend 2 weeks volunteering with her over the summer, and so she finally agrees to go. With their things packed, they meet up with their friend Brad and Marky's boyfriend Lucas, load their things into the car, and head down to Mexico. On the last night of the trip, Olivia decides to go and grab a drink, but while she's waiting at the bar, this goofy guy Ronnie comes up and immediately starts hitting on her. Noticing that she's not interested, this other guy Carter tells him to back off and asks her if she'd like to have a seat. The two of them sit there talking until the bar is getting ready to close down, and the rest of her friends come by looking for somewhere else to keep the party going. Carter here says that he knows a place, but this time it's Marky who wants to go back to the hotel, and Olivia who says that they should check it out. Guilting them into it, she finally gets her friends to tag along, but that was their biggest mistake. Okay, Carter might seem like a nice guy, but Olivia here has no idea that she's about to lead her friends straight into a trap. She might be a little too trusting to pick up on it, but the truth is that this guy Carter is already giving off some red flags. Any travel safety expert would strongly warn you against following a strange guy who you've just met in an unfamiliar location so late at night, especially when you've been drinking and you're in a foreign country. He says that it's just going to be another party spot, but there's no way to be sure about what his real intentions are, which is why, if it were me, I would have listened to my friends and gone back to the safety of the hotel. Besides the fact that you should never just blindly follow a stranger, no matter how trustworthy they seem, several more warning signs start to pop up. People usually go on trips like this with at least one or two friends, but Carter here is clearly at the bar all alone. So where's everyone else from his group? For all that you know, he could be a serial killer plotting to make you his next victim, or a member of some kind of cult, with his friends waiting in the shadows to sacrifice you the minute you let your guard down. That's not to mention that he tried to give her several chances to leave, and secretly feels bad or conflicted about whatever it is that he has planned for us once we get to this secret spot. Even if there were no major causes for concern, following him out into the middle of nowhere is still a very bad idea. If Olivia wanted to keep the relationship going, she could have just asked the guy what school he goes to and gotten his number so that they could meet up once they were back in the States, instead of pressuring her friends into a potentially dangerous situation. Following Carter out into the street, they eventually arrive at this abandoned mission building, and while he's handing out beers to the rest of the group, Olivia here decides to have a look around. The girl starts recording things about the place on her phone, which is when she finds some pictures of these old nuns next to a broken jar filled with a foul-smelling substance. As she puts the things back down, Ronnie shows up right behind her, admitting that he followed them there so he could crash the party. The rest of the group decides that they want to go home, but Carter insists that they stay for a little while longer, asking them to play a game of truth or dare. Everyone's having fun until this guy Tyson decides to start some drama by asking Marky if she knows that Olivia is secretly in love with her boyfriend. She doesn't believe him, but Olivia and Lucas are pissed off, and it almost turns into a fight until Penelope steps in and keeps the game going. This time, she picks on Carter. He chooses the truth, so she asks him what his intentions are with Olivia, but that's when he finally admits what he's been hiding this whole time. With a serious tone, he explains that he needed to find a group of friends that he could trick into coming out there, saying that he's okay with them dying as long as he gets to live, before standing up and walking out of the room. Olivia chases him down the hallway, demanding to know what's going on. Cornered, he explains that the game is actually real, and if you fail your challenge or refuse to play, you'll die. After explaining the rules, Carter takes off out of the building, and when Olivia goes back to her friends, it looks like they're all gone too. Suddenly, she turns around and sees them all staring at her with bizarre, demonic faces. The girl starts to freak out, but Lucas here grabs her by the shoulder and snaps her out of it, and they all decide to head back to the hotel. Okay, well, what do you know? It looks like following this random guy out to an abandoned church in the middle of nowhere just went horribly wrong. Who could have seen that one coming? Now all of her friends are trapped in a death game, and that's one hell of a way to cap off their vacation. I think we all know what this means. Hey Olivia, you up. None of this would have ever happened if you just stuck to your original plan and gone to build houses, instead of boozing it up with your friends. Sure, everyone's gotta cut loose and have a little fun once in a while, but peer pressure is never a good excuse for anything, and real friends would respect the commitment that you'd made if they knew how much it mattered to you. And now, on the very last night of the trip, it ended up being you who dragged everyone into a dangerous situation against their will, all because you were getting a little jealous of Lucas and Marky here and wanted some attention for yourself. Your buddy Tyson might be a jerk, but you can't say that he didn't read you like a book. And while having a crush on your best friend's boyfriend is bad enough, when you pull your entire friend group into a death trap all to impress some random guy that you've just met, that kind of makes you a bad person. Since you didn't even want to be on this trip in the first place, you really should have listened to your friends here and gone back to the hotel, especially after the secret spot turned out to be an abandoned church full of strange old photographs and broken jars with skulls in them. Seriously, you're supposed to be the smart one here. Come on, Olivia. Nothing's worse than someone who won't go home when the party's over. And this time, it's about to have some deadly consequences. The friends eventually make it back to school, and when Olivia gets to her first class, she notices the words "Truth or Dare" written on her desk, thinking that it must be a prank from Ronnie, who's sitting close behind her. Back at their house, Olivia sees this homeless man walking down the street and gives him some money before heading inside. While looking through the mail, she finds the question "Truth or Dare" once again, and starts to wonder what's going on. That's when Marky comes in, saying that she wants to make up, and the two girls promise to stay friends no matter what. The next day, Olivia goes looking for Marky in the library, passing this red-haired girl on the way in. Suddenly the girl turns around, her face morphing into that bizarre smile, and she asks her "Truth or Dare?" Confused, she tries to run out of the building, but everyone else gets up and surrounds her, chanting "Truth or Dare" over and over. Finally, Olivia breaks, choosing truth, and they ask her, what secret does your best friend make you hide? She yells out that Marky is always cheating on Lucas. But at that moment, everything returns back to normal, and she realizes that the entire building heard what she said, including her two friends. Shocked, Lucas gets up and runs out with his girlfriend chasing behind him. Olivia quickly tries to stop her and explained what just happened, but Marky pushes her away. Later that night, Ronnie is at the bar and starts hitting on these two girls. They're not interested, and this girl gets up to walk away, but suddenly she turns around smiling and asks him to make his choice. Feeling brave, he chooses Dare, and she challenges him to climb up on the table and show everyone his pool cue. Just as he's about to do it, Ronnie here starts to get embarrassed at some heckling from the crowd and decides not to finish the challenge after all. As soon as he tries to climb down, he immediately becomes possessed by the game and deliberately slips on a ball, which causes him to tumble over and break his neck on the table, killing him instantly. Okay, it looks like things just got real. In a normal game, dares aren't supposed to be dangerous, but this time, failing your challenge has deadly consequences. That's why if it were me, I'd stick to choosing truth and answering questions honestly, It's going to require you to share some things that might be embarrassing, but that's a lot better than risking your life in a dare. The only problem with this logic, though, is that you have to wonder what happened with that girl from the very beginning who lit the woman on fire at the gas station. If always choosing truth was an option, then there's no reason why she should have picked dare at that moment. This must mean that there are some other rules that we don't know about yet. It's clear that the game is going to ask you to do things that could get you in trouble or ruin your friendships, but nobody ever said that you have to yell your answer as loud as you can so that everyone in the library can hear you. If Olivia here had remained calm and thought it through, she probably could have covered her mouth and whispered the answer under her breath. That way, she'd still be completing her turn fair and square without exposing her best friend in the process. Waiting for the game to end might not work out, so if things start to go too far, then it might be time to look at ways to pass the curse onto another group and use them as a meat shield. We've seen what happened with Carter, that it's possible to bring other people into the game, and although we don't know yet if it actually sets everyone from the original group free, it couldn't hurt to try. The person who starts the process with the next group will probably be stuck in the game, which is why I'd choose whichever friend is the most ruthless to be the one who does the deed. So far, only Olivia and Ronnie even know what's happening, and since he isn't going to be much help anytime soon, she'll have to wait for the others to catch on before they can really start to come up with a plan. Olivia tries to explain to the rest of her friends what happened earlier that day, but it sounds so crazy that no one else believes her. Just then, they all get an update on their phones showing the video of Ronnie's death. She immediately becomes convinced that this is all related to the game, but her friends argue that this isn't proof because Ronnie could have just been drunk when he fell. That's when Lucas walks in, saying he doesn't believe her either, before taking his things and leaving. As he's walking to the car, Lucas hears someone calling his name. Confused, he tries looking around for where it came from, but doesn't see anybody nearby. That's when he notices Truth or Dare painted on the wall. Thinking that it must be a prank by his friends. Suddenly, he feels an excruciating pain from his arm, pulling up his sleeve and seeing that the words are burnt into his skin. Lucas calls Olivia right away, saying that he believes her and explaining what just happened. She quickly asks him if he made his choice and admits that he's had feelings for her ever since they met. He chose the truth, and that was the game's question. Finally sure that it's real, Olivia says that they need to convince everyone before it's too late, and he rushes back over to the house. When Marky gets home, everyone is already gathered around in the living room waiting for her. Olivia here starts to explain what's going on, and according to the order of their picture, her turn is next. That's when Marky gets a text asking her to choose. She picks the dare, and the game challenges her to break Olivia's hand. Horrified, the girl quickly runs to the kitchen, grabbing a hammer and insisting that she completes the dare so that she won't be killed. As angry as she is, Marky here still can't hurt her best friend like this. So Olivia does the only thing that she can and insults her friend's dead father right to her face. The plan works, and Marky slams the hammer down, breaking Olivia's hand, but unknowingly saving her own life as everyone else runs away, terrified. Okay, Marky should have really picked truth here. Even though she didn't believe what was going on, she had no way of knowing what the dare was going to be. Now we know that the game can actually make you hurt your friends, and if you refuse, then you'll be killed. So it's incredibly important that they all start making the right decisions if they want to survive. Since Marky got the message on her phone, they should try calling the number that it came from to see what they can find out. It's probably a dead end, but in a situation like this, you need to explore any option that you've got. Also, now we officially know that the game is challenging everyone in the order that they're arranged in the group picture, which means that Brad here is going to be up next. Knowing this, he can at least mentally prepare himself for what's about to happen, and should isolate himself from anyone who he doesn't want to hurt just in case. When the game eventually makes him take his challenge, he should obviously pick truth and answer the questions honestly. It might be embarrassing, but at least that way, he'll be able to survive his turn without having to physically hurt anyone in the process, like what happened with Marky. Lucas and Brad take their friend to the hospital, and while they're waiting, Brad here decides to get something from the vending machine. While he's distracted, this dead lady gets up from her bed and grabs him by the shoulders, demanding that he make his choice. Terrified, Brad chooses the truth, and that's when his police officer father shows up. his face twisting into the smile as the game makes him take his turn. Back in the lobby, he tells his friends that the game forced him to come out to his father. Instead of being upset, he actually feels great about what happened, but they realize that if his turn is done, then that means that Tyson is the next one up. Brad texts his friend, trying to warn him that the game is real, but he brushes it off and goes into his interview for med school. The meeting goes perfectly, and his friends arrive just as he's finishing up. But before they get a chance to warn him, the dean says that he forgot his bag, so he goes back into her office to grab it. As soon as his back is turned, the woman locks the door, asking him truth or dare. Thinking that it's a prank by his friends, Tyson chooses the truth, and the woman asks him how long he's been selling fake prescriptions. Lying, he says that he doesn't, but the game possesses him before he can leave, forcing him to pull out his lucky pen and jam it directly into his eyeball, before turning around and slamming his head into the wall and dropping to the floor dead. Okay, it looks like Tyson here should have just listened to his friends. They tried their best to warn him, but he was fully convinced that it was all a big joke, and too focused on his interview to really care since he wouldn't answer the phone. What they could have done here is called the dean's office and pretended to be her close relative, saying that you have a personal family emergency and need to speak with her right away. That way, she would have had to stop the interview and reschedule for another time, which would have given the others a chance to get Tyson before it was too late, even though he picked truth, which should have been the safe bet. The game still killed him off when he chose to lie, so going forward, they'll know that they really have no choice except to answer every question honestly, and keep working on a way to get out of the game before they all end up like Tyson and Ronnie. Back at the house, Penelope here realizes that her turn is next, and Lucas says that they should always pick truth and answer honestly until they can figure out how to end the game. The girl's been drinking her feelings away after the death of her boyfriend, so Marky brings her up to bed while the others decide to do some research into that guy Carter to see what they can learn. Olivia tries searching for him on Facebook, but can't get any leads, so Marky grabs her laptop and starts with a broad search of Mexico Truth or Dare. After scrolling through the results, she eventually lands on a news report about how a student named Gazelle attacked a woman at a gas station. It's the same girl from earlier, and they watch as the cashier asks her for cash or credit, but she responds dare, before grabbing some lighter fluid and setting the woman on fire. The girl is still wanted by the police, and Olivia quickly finds her profile on Facebook, where she sees pictures of her and Carter together on a trip just like theirs. He isn't tagged in anything though, so they decide to make a fake account and message her to see if they can get her to explain what's going on. Olivia starts typing out a message, but Marky says that it isn't convincing enough to get a response, taking the laptop and threatening her family unless she answers back, and explaining that if they want to live, they need to start doing whatever it takes to survive. Meanwhile, upstairs, Penelope starts to feel sick and goes to clean up in the sink, but suddenly, her reflection stands up on its own and smiles back at her, telling her that it's time to make her choice. She tries to pick the truth, but her reflection won't allow it, mysteriously saying that isn't how the game works. While the others are waiting for the girls to write back, Olivia and Marky start arguing about whose fault the whole thing is. Furious, Marky storms out of the house, but quickly returns and tells them all to come outside right away. Looking up, they see Penelope holding some vodka and standing out on the roof, shouting that the game wouldn't let her pick truth and dared her to walk along the edge until she finishes the bottle. Lucas here decides to run up to the roof to spot her while the others watch from the ground. Thinking quickly, Olivia tells Marky and Brad to grab something soft to catch her with if she falls, and following her around, clearing any dangerous objects out of her path. Okay, this is insane. This girl was already having the worst night of her life, and now she's been forced into a dare that can turn deadly at any second. She's got her challenge, and if she fails or anyone interferes, that will mean certain death. So what's her best strategy for survival? They're off to a good start by having Brad and Marky grab something for her to land on, but while Lucas is up on the roof, he could also try giving her a rope or thick bed sheet to hold onto while he ties the other end around his waist. As long as he doesn't physically touch her, then that shouldn't count as cheating. Now, she still has to finish the bottle. She could take the long and careful approach, gradually finishing it over the span of several hours, and taking every step as carefully as she can. Alternatively, Penelope here could make her way to the point in the roof that seems like either the closest to the ground or the safest landing area, and with others ready to catch her down below, just hold her nose and Shanice that whole thing in one nasty gulp. This would reduce the time that she's up there and lessen the chances of it going horribly wrong. It's never a good idea to chuck booze that way, but when it's a matter of life or death, you have to do whatever it takes to survive. Also, while she's finishing the challenge, someone should call the fire department and tell them that their friend is stuck on the roof and needs help. They'll get there fast and catch her if she falls, and have the skills to save her life if she gets injured or becomes sick from drinking too much. Her friends will have to time it just right, but as long as they can make sure that they don't call until she's almost finished with the challenge, then they shouldn't get there too early and risk having them interfere.
Coming soon to a theater near you, How to Beat's official Patreon. All the guts, all the blood, all the screams, plus nasty extras. How to Beat's Patreon. 2 times the shock, 2 times the terror, 2 times the subscription levels. Have a damn good day, and it only gets better. Both levels bid you welcome to pre-sales for ghoulish official How to Beat merchandise, and support the evil scientists behind the How to Beat videos. It only gets better. Subscribers are invited to the X-rated party. Ad-free and uncensored videos, too repulsive for all audiences, are available on demand. How to Beat's Patreon. In space, no one can hear you scream, but on Patreon, everyone can see you bleed. How to Beat's Patreon. Join us, if you dare.
Penelope's friends come back with a mattress, holding it under her while she slowly makes her way around the edge. But that's when they run into this metal fence full of spikes blocking their way. Olivia tries to open the gate, but it's locked shut. So she comes up with a new plan and runs back inside to grab her car keys. Meanwhile, Brad and Marky here try covering the fence with the mattress, but the spikes immediately poke through, so there's nothing they can do. Just then, Olivia comes speeding down the alley and rams into the gate, breaking it down just as Penelope finishes the bottle and tumbles off the roof. The others manage to throw the mattress under her just in time, and luckily, the girl actually survives. It was a close call, but they aren't safe just yet, and while they're catching their breath, Olivia gets a message back from that girl, Giselle. Jumping in the car, the group rushes over to meet up with her in this empty alleyway. They ask her how she knows Carter, but the girl seems confused until they tell her that he's the one who brought them into the game. Giselle explains that she and her friends got extremely drunk while on a trip to Mexico and decided to play a game of truth or dare in the abandoned church. This kid started smashing the place up, and when they got home, the game just kept going, killing all of her friends off one by one. Lucas asks her why it wouldn't let Penelope choose the truth, and she tells them that it's because of the rules that they played with. 2 truths and a dare, meaning that if 2 people pick truth in a row, then the next person is forced to take a dare. It turns out that Carter was dared to find a new group to play, and he had to bring them into the church to get everything started. The girl thought that once new people were involved, she'd be off the hook. But unfortunately, she's still in the game. That's when the others realize that it must be her turn, so she admits that the game dared her to kill Olivia. Suddenly, the girl pulls out a revolver and aims it at her chest, but Penelope dives in front of the bullet, and the guys take Giselle to the ground. Unable to finish her dare, the game takes over, and she turns the weapon on herself. Okay, now we know why they can't just pick truth every time. The game may have a 2 truths and a dare rule, but nothing says that the game itself is the only one who can be giving out the challenges. Since the game is ordered according to the picture, we always know whose turn is coming up next. So, after 2 people pick truth, it might be possible to quickly give the next person in line a lame, safe dare before the game has a chance to butt in. As long as they do the challenge, then this should count as a completed turn according to the rules, resetting the cycle so that the next 2 people on deck get to pick truth. Also, if daring other players does work, then there's a chance that you could defeat the game according to its own logic. Think about it this way, if you dared someone to stop playing the game, what would happen? This could go one of 2 ways. Either you'll be home free, or you'll be instantly killed for not playing. Since it's such a long shot, and there's a good chance that it'll backfire, I'd let someone else do it first, just to see what happened, but you never know until you try. Finally, now that they know that the game is directly related to the church, they should do some research into the building to try and learn anything that might eventually help them get out of this. Time's running out, and they're dropping fast, so they need to act quickly if any of them are going to survive. While they're looking over evidence back at the house, Olivia runs upstairs to grab her charger, but suddenly, the homeless guy who she helped just a few days ago jumps out and grabs her by the shoulders. It's her turn, and now she has to make her choice. Back downstairs, Lucas finds an article about a massacre at the church in Mexico, reading that there was only one survivor, a woman named Inez. Just then, they hear Olivia scream from upstairs and rush to find out what's going on. As soon as they burst into the room, the homeless man snaps out of it and runs out of the house with Lucas chasing after him. Olivia here admits that she chose the dare so that her friends wouldn't have to, and if she wants to survive, she has to sleep with Lucas. Furious, Marky storms out of the house, leaving her friend to follow through on her challenge. Lucas asks her why she wouldn't pick the truth, and Olivia confesses that she's been hiding a terrible secret from Marky and is afraid that the game will make her say it if she does. While they're sleeping together, Olivia becomes possessed by the game and starts to choke Lucas, telling him to make his choice. He picks truth and is forced to admit that although he has feelings for her, he's truly in love with Marky. Olivia tries to call her friend to warn her her turn is coming up. The girl ignores it and starts watching old memories of her dad instead. Suddenly, he starts talking to her through the screen, telling her that it's time to pick. She chooses the truth, and he asks her why she still has the gun that he used to take his own life. Horrified, she admits that sometimes she thinks about using it, and the game tells her that she should go home and get it. The next day, Lucas and Olivia drive to Mexico in search of the woman Inez. They arrive at this trailer out in the middle of nowhere, and the woman's granddaughter says that she's willing to see them, although they won't be able to talk since she hasn't spoken in over 50 years. The woman gives them a handwritten note, explaining how she grew up in the church with a bunch of other girls who all loved playing games. The priest who ran the place constantly abused them, until one day she decided to summon a demon named Calix to possess their game. That night, the demon brutally killed the priest, but forced the girls to keep playing, killing them off one at a time. They finally managed to escape when she, the person who released the demon in the first place, recited a spell and cut out her own tongue, placing it in a jar and sealing it with wax, which the demon trapped inside. As long as the jar stays shut, then the demon is defeated. But now, whoever broke the jar and released him will have to complete the ritual the same way that she did if they want to finally end the game. Okay, it looks like the key to surviving here is to find this guy Sam, but even if they do manage to track him down, how are they going to convince him to cut out his own tongue? A little forceful persuasion would definitely be the simplest option, but if they choose to go that route, then they'll have to be careful not to hurt him, because at the end of the day, they need to keep him alive to complete the ritual. They could try hypnosis, although it would probably take years to learn the technique, and by that point, they'd all probably be dead. This leaves them with two possibilities. If daring other players work, then daring him to go to Mexico and complete the ritual should do the trick, since he'd be forced to do it if he wants to live. They'd just have to make sure that the game didn't find a way to take him out before he could get it done. Of course, the last and best option is to just rationally explain what he needs to do. He should want to get out of the game at any cost, and once he realizes that this is their only chance to ever end it, he should be able to suck it up and make the sacrifice so that everyone can finally live their lives in peace. Before they can do any of this though, first they'll have to find him, which is exactly what they're going to do next. Back at their house, Brad's dad comes by and asks him to have a chat outside. But while they're talking, the demon starts speaking to him through the radio. It's Brad's turn, and his only option is to choose dare, which is when the demon orders him to steal his father's gun and force the man to beg for his life. Realizing what he has to do, Brad goes in for a hug before reaching down and grabbing the pistol. He tells his dad to beg for his life and promises to explain everything to him once it's over. But suddenly, a shot rings out, the man's partner firing a bullet into his back. Brad collapses to the ground, his father yelling for someone to call an ambulance, but it's too late, and there's nothing that he can do as his son dies in his arms. Marky meets the others at the police station, but before they even have a moment to talk, the demon possesses Lucas and tells Olivia that it's her turn to go. Too scared to choose truth, Olivia here picks dare, but that's when the demon pulls an Uno reverse, daring her to tell Marky the secret that she's been hiding. With no other choice, Olivia sits her friend down to tell her the truth. On the night that her father died, she went over to Marky's house, but her friend wasn't there. So the man invited her in to wait for her to get home. After a while, he started to make unwanted advances at her, and she totally freaked out, telling him that Marky would be better off if he wasn't around, the embarrassment leading him to take his own life. Heartbroken, Marky says that she'll never trust her again and walks out of the station. The detective calls Livia into his office and starts reading off the threatening message that they sent to Giselle, saying that he traced it back to them by pulling their IP. That's when he reveals that Giselle's friend Sam is still alive and shows her a picture of Carter, proving that they're actually the same person. Olivia pretends not to know the guy and asks for a glass of water, but as soon as the detective gets up, she quickly leans across the table and snaps a picture of his address before confirming that she hasn't been charged with anything and walking out of the room. Rushing back to the house, Olivia stops Marky just as she's about to take her own life with her father's weapon, apologizing for hiding the truth from her all these years and explaining that they know where to find Carter. The three of them arrive at the guy's apartment and kick down the door, telling him that they can end the game if they all go back to the mission. Sam here thinks that this must be one of the demon's tricks and immediately starts attacking them, but Olivia pulls out the 9 and tells him that he's coming to Mexico whether he wants to or not. The group heads back to the mission and starts setting up for the ritual, handing him the spell and a knife, and ordering him to say the words 7 times. As soon as he begins to read, the entire building starts collapsing all around them, but Olivia forces him to keep going. Suddenly, Sam becomes possessed by the demon, turning to Lucas and telling him that it's his turn. Trying to save his friends, Lucas chooses a dare and immediately starts to walk away from the rest of the group. And he explains that he needs to get out of there because the game dared him to choose one of them to kill. Sam here finally finishes the spell, and that's when Olivia orders him to pick up the knife and cut out his own tongue. Just then, the demon takes control over Lucas, and he throws Marky out of the way as he goes after Olivia. The girl rushes back and tackles him just in time, holding him down while Sam begins slicing through his tongue. But Lucas throws them off and stabs the guy in the chest before turning around and cutting his own throat. The girls realize that with Sam dead, they won't be able to complete the ritual, but that's when Olivia gets an idea, telling Marky that it's her turn next and saying that she needs to pick dare, but not follow through. The demon dares her to shoot her friend, and when she refuses, it possesses Marky and raises the weapon to her head. Olivia knocks the pistol down and gets shot in the arm, completing the dare. Before it can ask her next, Olivia calls out the demon and brings it into the game itself, challenging it to make a choice. Okay, this is officially the worst case scenario. With Sam dead, it looks like their only shot at ending the game is gone too. We know that the game is played according to the 2 truths and a dare rule, and now we also know that the demon itself can be brought in as a player if they choose their moves extremely carefully. They might be able to order things so that when it came back around to the demon's next turn, he landed on the forced dare. Then, all they'd have to do is dare the demon to end the game, and he'd have no choice but to set them all free. It's a huge long shot, but the rules are the rules after all, and now that all of their other options are off the table, it couldn't hurt to try. Unfortunately, Olivia here is about to choose a very different approach. Smiling, the demon chooses truth, and she asks how they can get out of the game alive. The demon laughs and tells her that she can't now that they've lost Sam, saying that the game can't end until all of the players are dead, and her turn is next unless she finds more people to play with. Realizing that she only has one other option, Olivia takes out her phone and uploads a video to YouTube, explaining what happened to her and her friends before asking the question, truth or dare. Getting into the car, she and Marky drive away, but now anyone who watches her video becomes another player in the game. But what would you do if your friends invited you over to play a harmless game of truth or dare and just started getting killed? Would you stick around to finish the game, especially if it had something to do with you? Let us know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this. Be sure to check out the Kill Plan, the new show that just launched on the channel. It's awesome. And you know, while you're at it, check out the Patreon. You can subscribe and receive totally unedited, uncensored versions of our videos. And we got merch! Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this. Let's see, I think I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah! Have a damn good day.